present and can be heard from me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rick Ward.
Here.
Audrey Labrie.
Here.
Barbara Anderson.
Here.
Amy Salter.
Here.
And myself. Mr. Hickey, Town Manager.
Here.
Linda Daigle.
No, he's not here right now, Mike.
Okay, and Taylor Power.
He's here, yep.
Okay. Anticipated speakers on the agenda may announce themselves now at this time to speak. We have Tracy Murphy.
Here.
Anybody else here speaking this evening? Okay. Good evening.
I will speak.
Who's this, please?
This is Mark Dormer, 245 Mellon Road.
Thank you. Good evening. This open meeting of the Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely. Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state of the emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The order, which you can find posted on the town website along with the agenda materials, allows public bodies to meet in time to vote, so long as reasonable public access is affordable so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. The meeting is convened by video conference via Zoom meeting as posted on the agenda found on the town's website identifying how the public may join. This meeting is being recorded and that some attendees and participants by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to share screen your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting business ground rules. Before we turn to the first item of the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold your name until called further. Please mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. 6 will mute, unmute, and unmute your phone. Please speak clearly and in a way that helps you generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait till the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. The chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak and identify their names and addresses. 3 minutes will be afforded to those who comment. For those of you participating on your phone, 9 notifies me that you wish to speak. By raising your hand, 9 lowers your hand. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. That being said, I'd like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll allow selectmen's comments. We'll start with Mr. Salter.
None at this time.
Mrs. Anderson.
I would just like to thank everybody that helped during the storm. We had a horrible mess all around town, and a lot of residents, as well as our first responders, helped clean it up pretty quickly. So I appreciate that.
Mrs. Labrie.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Mr. Ward.
I would also like to point out, thank Al Gallant and the DPW crew for the work they did during the storm.
Thank you. And I myself would like to thank the DPW and the police for fast action with all the roads being closed and the way they were able to clean up the town as quickly as possible. Okay, so now we have public comments. If you want to speak, now would be the time to speak about anything on the agenda, because there will be parts of this agenda where the public comment will not be allowed. Mr. Duarte.
I'd like to ask the board a couple of questions, if I may.
Go right ahead.
I assume that we're going to talk about relation I made
You broke.
on the board. After review video or the minutes, did the town's council, after review of the executive session video or minutes, did town's council unequivocally state that the letter and the spirit of the open meeting laws were not violated in the executive session?
Well, that will be covered in the upcoming agenda item.
You said I couldn't speak then. You asked me to speak now.
Well, that's going to be covered during the
Okay.
upcoming agenda meeting, so, and you'll hear the response from.
Am I allowed to speak then?
No.
I have another question then for that time too. Was anything other than the real value of Mellon Road discussed during the executive session? And the third question, is a third party involved in the negotiation involving sale lease? And my fourth question is, when will the minutes and video of the executive session be available? And those individually, please.
You broke up, so
Yeah,
I missed a lot of it.
Mr. Chair, Mark, you were breaking up this during some of those questions. They didn't come through, just to make you aware.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
The first question, after review of the executive session video or minutes, did town's council unequivocally state that the letter and spirit of the open meeting laws were not violated in the executive session? Question number two, was anything other than the real value of Mellon Road discussed in the executive session? Question three, is a third party involved in a negotiation involving the sale, lease, or exchange of Mellon Road?
So as far as the executive session, the minutes have not been released, so they will not be shared at this time. And that is to remain private until we release the minutes. So anything included inside executive session is privileged information at this time. When the minutes are released, then they'll be made public and they'll be posted on the town website.
That was question number 4. What about the first 3?
Again, everything is privileged information inside of executive session.
That's not privileged. That's not privileged information according to the law written by Maura Healy.
Uh-huh.
The questions I asked have nothing to do. They have to do with what you're supposed to provide according to the open meeting laws.
As far as the open meeting law violation, we're going to deal with that later and all the contents that with it. So your questions will be answered as far as, no, there has not been no third party involved other than our legal team.
Okay, well, as according to the law, it must, under this purpose, as with the collective bargaining and litigation purpose, an executive session may be held only where an open meeting may have a detrimental impact on the body's negotiating position with a third party. I'm just telling you that, not to argue, but just to let you know that these questions I'm asking are significant and they will be reviewed by the AG when the time comes.
Very well. Okay, so we're going to go on our agenda. And we're going to move on. Okay. We have no appointments of resignations at this time. We have no permits, license, and applications, and no board, commissions, departments. Moving on through the agenda, we have new business under 7.1 CDBG, Loan Housing Rehab Program, Loan Subordinate. And I'm going to let that go to Tracy Murphy, please.
Thank you. I'm here tonight because we had a housing rehab client that was part of the 2005 program, has an opportunity to refinance their existing first mortgage. And to do that, the town needs to agree to subordinate. This is one of the conditions that we typically allow because they're improving their position. They're pretty much, they're paying about half the percentage that they would be paying right now.
Okay. Do you want to go through the homeowner?
Excuse me?
The homeowner on who we're rehabbing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we, staff inadvertently had placed the homeowner's name in the board packet. So respecting the homeowner's privacy, we'd like to try to keep that as private as we can.
Okay. So before us, you have a motion. It's in your packet. I'm looking at it right now. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. LeBrie?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request from the homeowner of 12 Kemp Street, refinance the home as required by the CDBG Affordable Housing Program, and authorize the town manager to sign any documentation on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
May I get a second, please?
Mr. Chair, second.
Mr. Wood, thank you. This will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBrie?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tracy.
Next up, we have a review of the complaint that was filed against us. So I'm going to read to you a letter from the lawyer. It has been passed on to him, so please listen. Okay, please be advised, this office serves the town council of the town of Winchendon. The town board of selectmen is in receipt of an open meeting law complaint dated July 28, 2020 from Mr. Mark Dwarf, complainant. A copy of the complaint is enclosed. The complaint claims the board did not have the proper purpose for executive session held on July 13, 2020. It further alleges that the board did not make a motion to enter into executive session. The chair did not state whether the board re-enter open session or close the meeting after executive session. And the board charged that the purpose of entering executive session as announced. The board denies the allegation of the complaint. It should first be noted that in light of the state of emergency existing at the time of the governor's order, March 12, 2020, suspending aspects of the open meeting law, the July 13th, 2020 board meeting was conducted entirely remote on Zoom. The board videos of remote meetings are located on the town website at www.townofwinchendon.com/board-of-selectmen pages 2020 meeting videos. And the relevant portion of the July 13th, 2020 meeting from the complaint begins at approximately 1:55 hour mark near the end of the video. As shown on the video, the chair makes a motion to enter under purpose number 6 to consider the purchase, exchange, lease of value of rental real property, stating that open meeting could have a detrimental effect to the town's position, and that after some discussion with attendees, a roll call vote was entered into, executive session was taken. The chair also states that the meeting would not resume after the executive session. There is no basis, therefore, for the aspects of the complaint. This leaves for the use of purpose number 6 as the remaining point of contention. This has been debated over the past 2 years in the town and the residents of Mellon Road, specifically Middle Mellon Road, stemming from the board's determination of 2018, where the records of Mellon Road were discontinued as a public way as long ago as 1914. In neither of obligation or appropriation for the town to spend public funds to maintain, plow the roadway. By the letter dated April 21st, 2020, an attorney retained by some residents of Mellon Road submitted arguments to the board that, in summary, either the roadway is public now or that the town is obligated to accept it. As of the copy of April 21st letter is enclosed for your reference. While the letter makes allegations of damages suffered by abutters, town council advises town manager that the letter does not raise to the level of imminent threat of litigation as interpreted by division of utilizing purpose 3, but it did concern the value of Mellon Road for purpose number 6 to apply. While the complaint alleges that the board changed the reason for entering executive session, The reason for the session was that the abutters via an April 21st letter claiming that either the value of Mellon Road or that the town...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, you skipped a line.
What's that? Did I skip a ride? I'm sorry.
That claim that either,
Yeah, I got it. Via the April 21st letter claimed that either the Mellon Road is a public way, in which the case the town would be liable for the cost of repairs based on the value of Mellon Road, or the town is obligated to establish the roadway as a public way. Establishment of a public way on private property requires that the public authority laying out the way to acquire real estate property rights within the layout of the road sufficient to provide for the public use. CGL small c dot 82-24. Like other rights in private property, these rights must be acquired from the relevant property owners by either negotiating sale or existing or eminent domain. In either case, these rights have a more monetary value, and that the determination of what the compensation the town is willing to pay for those rights. And thus, whenever the town is willing or able to lay out the way as a public way may be discussed in executive session under purpose number 6. The chair's motion identified Mellon Road as a property at issue, and the abutters' April 24th letter was cited as the reason as an open meeting may have detrimental effect to the town's negotiating position. This is all that is required for the purpose of the motion to enter executive session under purpose number 6. While the board was not discussing purchasing Mellon Road in a typical sense, even the board decided to seek to establish Mellon Road as a public way. This is not a requirement to use purpose 6, purchase only or consideration of negotiation over real estate property value, where other contingencies exist. Open Meeting Law 2016-46 uses the purpose 6 valid, a purchase and sale agreement with the purchase excluded price executed based on the remaining issues and contingencies. In summary, the board submits that its July 13, 2020 meeting executive session was properly noticed. The motion to enter the session met statutory requirements, and the subject matter was appropriate for purpose number 6. The board submits no remedy or action is needed. Yours truly, Brian W. Riley. Now I'll open it up to members for comment. Mr. Ward.
I have no comment.
Mrs. LeBrie.
no comment.
Mr. Salter.
No comment.
Mrs. Anderson.
I will comment because I have some serious concerns with this letter. And I know if everybody checked their email, we did get a response from town council, and I'm not sure that I'm even comfortable with that, because I'm trying to justify using number 6 for going into executive session, and I'm not sure we do meet those qualifications.
Okay. Well, we've reached out to town council multiple times on this issue, and under exemption number 6, we do have the right to go in there, and we did have the right discussion going forward. Other than that, there's not much else I can say unless you'd like to amend some of the wording to it. But other than that, that's really what we have to work with. So, with that being said, I look for a motion on this.
Can you answer my questions first, individually?
No, sir. We're in the middle of a meeting.
Was anything else Mellon Road discussed in the executive session? That doesn't violate the closed meeting rules for purpose 6 for you to say it, for you to answer.
Sure. I specifically stated to you that during this discussion, we would not be taking any comment. Now, if you can't follow the rules, I'm going to have you muted.
Hello?
Do you understand that?
Is yours frozen?
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. LeBrie?
Officially say that.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the open meeting law response this evening.
Do you understand that?
As presented.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Mr. Chair, second.
Thank you very much. This will be a roll call vote. Mrs. LeBrie?
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Aye.
Mrs. Salter,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson.
No.
Chair votes aye, the motion carries. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have a review of the annual town meeting timeline and vote to be scheduled. I'll turn this over to Mr. Hickey at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the recent changes with the Commonwealth and the fact that they've released now or committed to funding amounts for Chapter 70 and the town's unrestricted general aid, after conversations with the board chair, I thought it'd be appropriate to put together a fiscal 2021 budget timeline for both a special and an annual town meeting. In your Dropbox this evening is the proposed timeline. This timeline is based on a town meeting to be held Monday evening, September 28th, in the Murdoch High School Gymnasium, not the auditorium, to allow for proper social distancing. All of the items in the timeline meet all of the required statutory requirements with regards to this timeline. I've had this reviewed by legal counsel. It's a very aggressive timeline to bring something forward for September 28th. It would include myself presenting a draft budget 2 weeks from tonight. The board, as they normally do, finalizing that budget the week after on the 31st. And then working with the Finance Committee to have them review the budget and ultimately make recommendations. Once they make their recommendations, their recommendations come back to the Board of Selectmen for the Board of Selectmen's final recommendations on September 28th. And we would then, September 14th. That evening, we would post the warrant in preparation for the September 28th annual town meeting and special town meeting.
Does anyone have any questions for the town manager at this time?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Ward?
Yes, couple quick questions. So we were concerned about not having official numbers. So I guess I'm hearing now that, town manager, from what you've gotten, you're very confident in these figures now.
Thank you. So we've received estimated revenues for the lion's share of the revenues that come from the state, Chapter 70, and our unrestricted money. There may be some minor changes in some of the other smaller revenues, but the largest of the revenues that come from the Commonwealth were publicized last week and included confirmation that those were good numbers for fiscal 21 completely.
Okay, so we're comfortable with September 28th as a firm date. I just don't want to get into where we're telling people the 28th and 2 weeks down the road we're going to change it again.
No, I agree with you. I'm comfortable that the numbers the state provided last week are solid. There are some minor adjustments that might need to be made at a special town meeting, where we might schedule later on in the fall for potential use of free cash and things of that nature. If there are minor adjustments to some of the revenues or appropriations that the state either provides to us or charges the town of Winchendon, then we can make those minor modifications at that time.
And my final question, the August 24th, August 31 presentation of the draft budget and the final, that will be a joint meeting with the BOS and Finance Committee?
That's what's proposed. That's what has been done over the last couple of years anyways.
Okay, I'm good.
Thank
you. Any other questions for the town manager at this time? Mrs. LeBray?
Mr. Chair, thank you. If I may, through the chair to the town manager, will the school department be able to get their budget set according to these timelines?
I have shared this timeline with the superintendent last week, and have not heard that she won't be able to. So I believe they'll be prepared as well, based on the timeline that's being presented to you this evening.
One other question, if I may. Keith, I'm looking at the document Guide to FY21 budget timelines. Under the bullet final warrant, excuse me, the next one down, warrant posting. Says it must be at least 14 days for a special town meeting. But if we don't do that till the 21st, that's only 7 days till the 28th.
Right, so we've got to finish up the annual town meeting and the special town meeting warrants on September 14th to meet the posting requirements for September 28th.
Okay, so if we vote that evening on the 14th, it will also be posted that day?
It'll be posted that evening after the board meeting, yes, ma'am.
Right after the meeting, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I think those were the only questions I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any comments on the timeline for the town meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I think my question is, because everything is still so fluid, do we still have the ability to move it if we have to?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to answer that, yes, we can. If there's a reason to have to do that, we certainly can.
Is that the only question you have, Mrs. Anderson?
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the logistics and making sure that we're not painting ourselves into a corner.
Okay, well, we do have the ability to change it should an outbreak or cases start to spiral or any other changes need to be made. We will be able to change it. But at this time, we have solid numbers, as solid as they're going to be from the state based on the 2020 numbers, and the town managers making adjustments and the school departments making adjustments to their budget to fit that dollar amount on both sides of the fence. So with that being said, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the establishment of Monday, September 28, 2020, as the date of the 2020 annual town meeting. The meeting will be held in Murdoch High School Gymnasium beginning at 7 p.m. I further move that the 2020 annual town meeting warrant open at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, and close at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020.
may I get a second?
Second, Mrs. Audrey LeBrie.
Mrs. LeBray. This is a roll call vote. Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Salter,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBray,
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. We'll now move forward next week with the outlay of the budget. Next up for discussion is a special warrant article creating a permanent tax exemption for Gold Star families. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recently, a board member reached out to me asking if the town had adopted the Gold Star family tax exemption. In doing some research, it's something that the town of Winchendon has not adopted at this point. So I wanted to put it on a board agenda to have a discussion about whether or not the board would like to consider sponsoring a warrant article on our September 28th annual town meeting warrant. A Gold Star family is defined as a surviving parent or guardian of one of military personnel, including members of the National Guard or on active duty, who went missing in action during active duty and are presumed to have died, or two, military personnel, including members of the National Guard on active duty, or veterans who die as a proximate result of injuries sustained or illness contracted during the active duty service. A surviving parent or guardian must have lived in Massachusetts for at least 5 consecutive years before the tax year begins. If not, the deceased military or guard member or veteran had to have been domiciled in Massachusetts for at least 6 consecutive months before entering the service. Currently, there is one family in Winchendon that would qualify for this exemption. And I bring it to the board again because there's been a request to consider it. And before I include it on a warrant, I thought the board could weigh in to decide whether or not they support having some of this on the warrant.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board for discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Agree?
Excuse me, Mr. Ward, thank you. Would this be a one-time property tax exemption through the chair to the town manager, please? Or would this be, permanent for as long as that person lives in Winchendon? How would that work?
It would be assigned to that particular property for as long as the parent of the deceased military member owned that home.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
The ward.
first let me say I'm all for this, but I do have some questions with the way the thing is phrased. My one big concern is it talks about the family, but I've looked at the Gold Star families, and in some cases, they also include a spouse. And I'm thinking of, Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of those soldiers that went in, male, female, were family members. And I guess I'm saying that the spouse with children at home, whether it be the man or the woman, they should have some sort of exemption from this in this article, this warrant article. So I'm really looking at a broader thing, more than just parents, but parents and a spouse. And I looked at the guidelines on the Division of Local Services, the tax, and there's I believe it's this one is clause 22H, but there is clause 22D about a surviving spouse, and it gives the reasons why they should also be in this. Also, we talk about property taxes in our proposed article, our warrant article, but when we go to the state guideline, they talk about the domicile. So when you say just property taxes, could that family have not only a house they live in, but also a business? And are we excluding all those taxes? So
I understand
the
it.
concerns I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can verify, Mr. Ward, the spouse of a Gold Star family member, and whether or not they have some benefit to this or another exemption we already have, and let the board know that next Monday. With regards to the business or other properties, it's the domicile.
This is all defined by the state. It's a state law. It's already written.
Excuse me, sir. Please wait to be recognized. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. So this is a state law. We would have to adopt a state law locally. The language that's been included in the information you have this evening is directly from the state law. Again, what needs to happen at this point is it needs to be placed on a warrant, and if it is placed on a warrant and the voters approve it, then it would become an exemption that eligible people would be able to enjoy moving forward.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, I guess somewhere in that, it should probably refer to the state law where the guidance is. And I also would like to see surviving spouse included in that.
Okay.
Okay. So I will now, Ms. LeBray.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. So what Mr. Hickey, what you're asking for tonight is the board to support putting a warrant article on the fall annual meeting. So if we do agree to this tonight, we'll put the placeholder in there, and then the verbiage and the language of the article will be fleshed out between now and, when we look over the warrant. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we can discuss it next week if you'd like, or we can wait until the budget's presented in 2 weeks. And I'll have a warrant that will support the budget that I'm proposing, and in that warrant will include a warrant article for the Gold Star family exemption.
Thank you. And this is my question.
Mr. Duarte?
I would just like for the public to understand what's behind this. It's already a state law, and it already includes spouses, and it delineates all of this stuff. And the fact that the town denied this poor Gold Star mom the exemption in the beginning is absurd. She applied through the Veteran Service Office, and the town denied her because the town didn't adopt an already existing state law. I think that the town should continually adopt state laws on a regular basis. And to dishonor a military family member like this, I mean, I don't know if you guys have anybody in the military in your family, but the exemption is more than money. The exemption is recognizing a death for us. They fought for us. And the definition of Gold Star means that they lost their lives in battle, in combat, in country. And that we're discussing these nuances that is already laid out by the state, and we have to go through this process, and that you made a Gold Star mom cry by denying her this from the very beginning is astonishing. It's $400, and you guys you denied her, and you have to go through this nuance. Just adopt the state law. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public like to speak on this?
Mr. Chair?
Sabri?
Thank you. Through the chair, just acknowledging Mr. Dorwad's comments. It will actually be the town meeting that will decide whether the town adopts it. But I'm definitely going to make a motion that we do support the warrant article and take care of those families. Yes, I have members in the military.
Thank you.
And to be honest with you, Mr. Dorwat, I know we've had our differences, but to be lectured on my patriotism hurts a little bit. But I do get your point, and we'll get this remedied as soon as we can.
Thank you, Ms. LeBray. Anybody else want to speak to this? Okay, I'd like to just address this. I have, my father was in the Korean War. My uncles were in the Korean War. I wholeheartedly endorse this, as this is the first time this has come to our attention. We will bring it up for a vote and then put it on a warrant article if it so passes. And then it will be up to the general public to vote on it. As with a lot of Massachusetts laws that have to be passed, they have to be adopted locally, and sometimes we don't get all the information when things pass, but when we do, we will address them and bring them forward to the community, whether it's in the best interest of this community or not. Ms. LeBray.
The mom was denied. You didn't even look up the law before you denied her.
Please wait to be recognized, okay?
Okay, can
let me address Mrs. LeBray first.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve sponsoring a Gold Star property tax exemption warrant article on the 2020 annual warrant.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBray?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Mr. DeWart, if you'd like to finish your comment, you may now speak.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that you're talking about the process of accepting laws as a difficulty. This is the job you volunteered for, and she was denied the application without anybody on the board or in the office that Keith Hickey runs.
You just froze again, Mr. Dorwat.
State laws, and it's for you. How hard it is for you to adopt a law, and it takes all this work. How hard is it for them to lose a son? You had a chance to look up laws when you denied her. You should have looked them up then, and you should keep up with them. I don't want to hear about the logistics of your job being hard. You work for us, we elected you. Let's not get into how hard your job is. Keep up with the laws. Job.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, next up on the agenda is the appointment of election workers. Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Section 12 now requires the Board of Selectmen to annually appoint town election workers. Included in your Dropbox material is the list of the election workers recommended by the town clerk, Wendy Stevens. Everyone have a chance to look this through?
I did, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr.
Could I just ask how people are appointed to these different positions? What process do they go through?
Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. They meet with the town clerk. Many of these individuals are longtime poll workers and have been working in those particular positions for quite some time. As new people come forward, they are placed in positions that the town clerk feels most confident that they can satisfy. So, there's not a formal interview, so to speak, but just using the experience of the person that's applying and the interest that that particular person may have in one of the positions that are available to them.
Mrs. LeBray.
Thank you. Through you to the town manager, please. Keith, I know, so Wendy's approved this list. Does this give her enough manpower, woman power, to make sure that all the safety regulations are, people are distant and all the social issues that we're dealing with right now? This gives her the crew that she needs to take care of all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Not seeing any, I look for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. LeBray.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the list of election workers presented this evening and that are recommended by Town Clerk Wendy Stevens.
May I get a second? Looking for a second? I'll second that motion. Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Mrs. LeBray?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
I abstain.
Mrs. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Salter?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passed. Okay, next up on the agenda is the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we just talked about a few minutes ago with the town meeting schedule, we received our Chapter 70 and unrestricted general government aid numbers. The numbers that they're providing now through their revised estimates about just under $90,000 less than what was anticipated through the governor's budget. So I will work with staff, the town accountant, and the school department to finalize a revised budget to bring forward to the board and to the finance committee 2 weeks from tonight. The fire department has been awarded 2 grants, one in the amount of $59,000 for 20 sets of turnout gear. That grant pays for about 95% of the turnout gear. The town share of 5% equates to about $3,100. And we've also received a grant for personal protective equipment so that the fire department will be able to utilize moving forward. We have no personnel updates this week. As far as some of the project updates go, the EPA has finished up on Lincoln Ave Extension. They'll be removing some of their equipment that's up there now over the next couple of weeks. The fence will be taken down. They've done an amazing job and have been very, very good to work with, and we appreciate all of their support and guidance over the last several months. Al Gallant, Tracy Murphy, Fire Captain Brian Vane, and I met with representatives of the Montechusett Veterans Outreach Center for an update on the Veterans Housing Project at the former Poland Street of Schools. MBOC has a revised design for the schools that will forward out to the board and make those public. They're very, very similar to what was seen at the fall town meeting when the authorization to sell these buildings were provided by the voters. And they've also volunteered to come to a future Board of Selectmen meeting to present the project to the board, to the public, and take any questions or comments anybody may have. And then Mass Broken Stone, who won our paving program for 2020, they'll be starting on the week of August 17th. Hope to get that done sometime before school starts. They've got a pretty active timetable. Winchendon also partnered with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on our street salt bid, and that bid came back at $56.10 a ton, which is the same price per ton as we had in last summer's winter as well. So that was good news. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
I open up to the board. Any questions on the town manager report?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I would like to thank the fire department and Chief Smith for obtaining those grants. It is a big help, especially this year.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this? Okay, not seeing any. We have some minutes. The first one, 10.1, Monday, July 13th, our regular meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. LeBray?
I move that we approve the minutes of our regular meeting Monday, July 13th, 2020.
May I get a second?
Chair, second.
This will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBray?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next up, we have Monday, July 13th, 2020, executive session minutes. These are to be approved only, not to be released.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I move the minutes from the executive session of Monday, July 13, 2020 be approved only, not to be released.
Can I get a second?
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBray?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye also. The next one we have is Monday, July 27th, 2020, our special meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I move the minutes of the special meeting on Monday, July 27, 2020 be approved.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. Chair,
LeBray?
if I may, is that the meeting that I was unable to attend?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Okay, because I am listed on there as being present.
Okay, so we need to amend the minutes reflecting that Mrs. LeBray was not there.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can I get a motion, as I just stated, to amend the minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I move the minutes for the special meeting of Monday, July 27, 2020 as amended be approved.
Thank you. Can I get a second for that? I will second that motion. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBrey,
Abstain?
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. We have minutes from executive session minutes that can be released now from Monday, September 11th, 2017.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. LeBrey,
I move that the board release minutes from the Monday, September 11th, 2017 executive session.
may I get a second, please?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I'm not sure, I wasn't a member, I wasn't a BOS member at the time of these meetings, so I'm sort of staying back.
okay, I understand that. So I will second this. So this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Salter,
I wasn't at that meeting, I abstained.
okay. Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Abstain.
and the chair votes aye. The next set of minutes we have on Monday, March 12th, 2018.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. LeBrey,
I move that we release the minutes of the Monday, April 27th, 2020 executive session.
can I get a second? I will second those minutes. Mrs. Salter,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Abstain.
Mrs. LeBrey,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. Our next meeting will be on August 17th, August 24th, and August 31st. We have no executive session this evening, so I look for a motion to adjourn at this time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn at this time.
May I get a second?
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Salter,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ward,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We are now adjourned at 7:22. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.